In another lesson, I provided you a brief introduction in how to use an area model to multiply some numbers. And in this particular lesson, I'm going to start using variables and show you how we can use an area model to multiply polynomials, or expressions with several terms in them. So when we're working with this, what I call a 2x2 area model, which is just 2 by 2, so we end up with 4 squares, where the two terms intersect is where the solution is put within the box. So we have to know how to use the box in order for it to be effective. So for example here, I'm multiplying these two binomials, the quantity x plus 2 times the quantity x plus 5. And I kind of run through, this is just from your notes that you can get on Canvas. It looks a little out of order here once I transferred it from a Word document into OneNote, but you'll kind of get the general principle. So if you take a look here, in this first box right here, I see my x term intersects with my x term. And so that's why right here I have x times x written. See, I'm multiplying x times x. Okay, in the next box here, in the next slot, I can see that I have 2 intersecting with x. See, x and 2 are intersecting, so that's why right there I have x times 2. Going down a little further, over here, I can see, once again, x is intersecting, but this time x is intersecting with the number 5. And so that's why down here I have 5 times x, or x times 5. Same thing, right? Order doesn't matter in multiplication. And then finally right here again, I've got the 2 intersecting with the, oh, I guess I should have drawn it up here, sorry. I've got the 2 intersecting with the 5. And so that's why down here at the very end I've got 5 times 2 written. And when we have the two binomials that are written exactly like these guys up here, this is that exact pattern we should see every time. Where we've got, in the top left box, we've got 2 numbers, right? Or sorry, not 2 numbers, but 2 variables in the top left box. In the middle boxes, we've got number and variable. And then in the final box, we've got just a variable. Or sorry, oh my goodness, just numbers, which that should say 5 times 2. So what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to actually, in this final box right here, multiply each of the pieces together so we can kind of see what that looks like. So let me take care of this x times x first. If you need a refresher on how to take care of exponents when multiplying, go ahead and watch my video lesson on that. But we should know by now that x times x gives us x squared. Okay, should be automatic. Right here, x times 2 or 2 times x. When I multiply a number and a variable, I just squish them together, right? So that's 2x. We normally write the number first. It's called a coefficient. 5 times x is going to get me, oh, guess what? 5x. Pretty easy. And then in that last box there, 5 times 2 is going to get me 10. So now we can see right here, I've then kind of gone and written everything out. So there, my x squared was right there. My 10 was right there. And you can see in the middle here, I've got what I call like terms, right? Because it's like adding 5 apples and 2 apples together, right? Since they're both apples, I can add them together. If I had, say, an x squared there, I wouldn't be adding those two together. Instead, I'd be adding that top row together, right? But thankfully, instead, we do indeed have an x. So these are like terms right here that we can add together. So I can bring down 5x there, bring down 2x, and you can see the 2 terms in the middle, right? Or what's going to get added together. The 5x and the 2x are going to get combined, and they're going to get me 7x's in total. And see, I said combine like terms there. So my final answer, as you can see, is this guy here that I'm going to box in red, x squared plus 7x plus 10. And that's what we get when we multiply those two binomials together that we started with at the very beginning. X plus 2 times the quantity x plus 5. So here I've just got a ton of examples of the area model. Just with the way it works when I created it in Word, it looks a little funkier. But usually when you draw these guys, what you're going to end up with is something like this, where you'll have just the box, and then outside the box you'll write the terms. You don't have to do like the larger box. So totally up to you though when you go to actually write it for yourself, but just know that most frequently you'll just see it like this with a box. So again, in that first box there, I need to merge x times x, right? X and x are intersecting there in that box. And so what I'm going to have when I do that, x times x is x squared. Right here, I got to have 3 times x in the top left top right box. 3 times x is 3x. Right here, 5 times x is going to give me 5x. And finally, in my very last box, I'm going to do 5 times 3, which will get me 15. Off to the right-hand side here, all I'm going to do is take everything that's in the box and just write it horizontally so it's all together. So x squared plus 3x. Notice I'm putting a plus instead of a minus sign because this is clearly positive, right? I just don't write the positive sign. Plus 5x plus 15. Per usual, we can almost always combine those two in the middle, okay? They both have x's in them, so I get x squared. 3 of something plus 5 of something gets me 8 of that something, and plus 15, reading out my 15, and what I'm circling in red there is my final answer. Let me go through another one here. Again, top left box right there, I got x times x, which is going to get me x squared. Right here in the top right box, x times 1 or 1 times x is going to get me a single x. I can choose to write the 1 or I don't need to, right? You take a look at that, you ask yourself how many x's are there. Well, clearly there's 1 x. Down here, negative 5 times x is going to be negative 5x. And in my final box, negative 5 times a positive 1 is going to be a negative 5. Be super careful with that one. Now again, I'm going to take all of those and write them out horizontally here. X squared plus x minus 5x. Notice I wrote the minus sign there because I had subtraction. This guy over here was negative, so we can see. So minus 5x. And then minus 5 at the very end. So good number of negative signs going on here. Again, I'm going to combine those two in the middle. First, let me just bring down my x squared. If I had 1 of something and I take away 5, I have negative 4 of those left, right? Because I took away more than I had. Negative 4x, bring down my minus 5. Again, when I'm boxing in red is my final answer. Here's yet another one. Here, I'll kind of zoom in there. Okay, x times x is going to give me x squared. And it's following this pattern when we've got two binomials with a power of 1 and a number following it. It's always going to follow this pattern. X times negative 4 is negative 4x. Negative 5 times x is negative 5x. And in the final box, negative 5 times a negative 4, right, because that's its intersecting, negative 5 times negative 4 is going to get me a positive 20. Again, I'm going to take those guys and just write them out here. I've got x squared minus 4x minus 5x. And I should point out that it doesn't matter the order in which you write your like terms. I could have very well switched those and written negative 5x first and negative 4x second. But that's just kind of the order I like to follow as I run along the box. And plus a positive 20 at the very end. Again, let's combine those guys in the middle. I know I can bring my x squared straight down. A negative 4 plus a negative 5, or a negative 4 and a negative 5 combined together gets me just a larger negative number, so negative 9x plus 20. Feel free to use a calculator to check that addition part. And I'll box it. And right there, that's my final answer. Let me go ahead and skip down to something that's a little bit more difficult. This 2x plus 4 times the quantity x plus 2. Got a little more going on here, which this one is an example of a problem that might make it really useful for you to go back and watch those lesson videos and refresh your memory on how to multiply exponents. So again, in this first box, I got 2x times x coming together. So I'm going to multiply 2 times 1 first, right? There's an imaginary 1 there. 2 times 1, of course, is going to get me 1. X times x is going to get me x squared. So I still have an x squared term in there. I just have 2 of them, right? I've got 2 x squareds going on. In this box right there, 4 times x or x times 4. I just smush them together, number times a variable. Down here, 2 times 2x. Again, I'm going to multiply my numbers first. 2 times 2 is 4, and then I bring along my x. Final box here, 4 times 2 or 2 times 4 is going to give me 8. From here, the process is the same. I just write that out horizontally. 2x squared plus 4x plus 8. With my like terms next to each other because they can get combined, right? Like terms show up diagonally there. Again, let's bring down the 2x squared. Nothing to combine him with. But these a 4x and a 4x, if I have 4 of something plus 4 of something, I get 8 of that something. And then bring down my plus 8. Nothing else to combine him with, no other numbers. And boom, square them off. That's our final answer. Let's take a look at when we get some negatives involved. 2x plus 4 times the quantity x minus 3. Again, first box here is going to be 2x times x. 2 times 1 is 2. X times x is x squared. Right here in this box, x times 4 or 4 times x is going to be 4x. Negative 3 times 2x is going to get me a negative 6x. And finally, a negative 3 times a positive 4 is going to get me a negative 12. A negative times a positive gets me a negative. And again, I'm going to then write this guy out. Note that the 4 is positive there, right? But my 6x is negative. Negative 6x, my final number is also negative, minus 12. Bring down that 2x squared. Let's combine those blue-like terms in the middle there. 4 of something minus 2 of something is going to take me into the negative territory, so I have negative 2x's. Again, always use your calculator if you're not sure. Bring down that minus 12, box it, we're done. Let me go ahead and go down. Let's go ahead and go down to this last problem here. Now, let's take a look at the last two really quick, just for example's sake. Negative 4x times a positive 2x. Look, we've got numbers, coefficients, we call them, in front of both of those variables. But again, I'll just multiply the numbers first. Negative 4 times 2 is going to get me negative 8. X times x gets me x squared. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Right here, 2x and negative 5 are going to come together. So 2 times a negative 5 gets me a negative 10, include my x. Down here, 3 times negative 4x. Okay, 3 times negative 4 is going to get me a negative 12, include my x. Final box, 3 times a negative 5 gets me a negative 15. Again, same process where I'm going to take these guys and write them out vertically. Note that or horizontally rather. Note that I include that negative sign that's in front of my 8x squared term. Negative 8x squared minus 10x minus 12x minus 15. Whole lot of negatives going on in this particular one. Bring down that negative 8x squared. Let's combine these like terms in the middle. They're blue. They're x's, so I can combine them, right? Apples to apples. A negative 10 of something minus 12 of something is negative 22 of that something, or negative 22x. Bring down my negative 15 and box that sucker because that's our final answer there. Let's see though. Yeah, those are pretty standard. Okay, let's take a look at one final one here that might trip you up a little bit once you're used to seeing some numbers or coefficients on both of your x terms there. Remember, there's an imaginary 1, right? So negative 3 times negative 1 is a positive 3. X times x is x squared. Don't let that trip you up. Right here in this box, negative x times a positive 4 is going to get me a negative 4x. Bottom left box, 1 times a negative 3x gets me negative 3x. Far right, 4 times 1 gets me 4. Again, next step, let's write those guys out horizontally. 3x squared minus 4x minus 3x plus 4. Okay, I'm going to bring down that 3x squared, nothing else to combine them with. Going to combine like terms here. Negative 4 minus 3 is going to be negative 7x. Bring down my plus 4. Let's get that red pen out and box him. Final answer. Okay, so that was just kind of an example of how to multiply two binomials using an area model. And then just don't forget to combine like terms here at the very end, right? This step that we did right here, that's most often forgotten. And a lot of times I see people trying to multiply once they get out of the box. So remember, when you're within the box, you're doing multiplying. Over there, multiplying. Over here, once you get out here and you're combining like terms, you're adding and subtracting, okay? That's key. That was just a brief example. In another lesson, I'm going to show you how to actually set up the area model, right? Because you're not always given a nice little neat box like that. And then some examples as well of multiplying larger polynomials.